Hello and welcome. My name is Zafar Iqbal, and you are watching the Mojo Story. Prime Minister Modi has just concluded his address at Bakshi Stadium in Srinagar. It was a big gathering that Prime Minister spoke to. He touched upon many things, but the main focus was on developmental schemes in Jammu and Kashmir and how Jammu and Kashmir is progressing with the rest of the country after the abrogation of Article 370. To speak on Prime Minister's speech, we are joined by a eminent panel. We're joined by Zafar Chaudhry, who joins us from Jammu. He's a journalist and a political analyst. Welcome to the show, Zafar Saab. And we're also joined by Pathania Saab, who is a spokesperson of the BJP, and Lieutenant General Satish Dua joins us as well. He's been the former Corps commander based in Srinagar. He also joins us. Welcome all to the show. If I may start with you, Zafar Saab. Uh, there was a lot of expectation of the Prime Minister's visit in Kashmir and his speech at Bakshi Stadium. It was a huge gathering. Prime Minister said that about 1 lakh people joined online, and he spoke at length. What do you make of his speech?
Well, Prime Minister's speech was a standard narrative of him on Jammu and Kashmir that he has been talking about over the last 5, 6 years. So, which primarily borders on development, abrogation of Article 370, and integration of Jammu and Kashmir with the rest of the country. The speech I could see that was divided into two components. That one audience that he had in his mind was the Kashmiri audience, and the other audience was in rest of the country because this is the election season and Prime Minister has been going across the country. It's like signing off Modi 2.0. These are the last speeches, which are a kind of hybrid speeches between official events and the BJP managed events. This was remarkable that Prime Minister returned to Jammu and Kashmir within 2 weeks. So last time in Jammu, the speech was slightly different, that targeted as, of course, like today's speech on the dynastic politics and Congress's role, and he talked about how the benefits have come to the ordinary common people of Jammu and Kashmir after the abrogation of Article 370. But in Kashmir, I think the speech had an added element of trying to make a personal connect with the people of Kashmir. He talked about Hazrat Bal. He laid a huge emphasis on J&K Bank. I was trying to understand that why did he
Yes.
devote more than 5 minutes about J&K Bank. So J&K Bank has a special place in the hearts of people of Jammu and Kashmir. It's a pre-1947 institution. If not every single person, but at least every third person has an investment in Jammu and Kashmir Bank. And there have been few issues with the bank, probably through that about the governance. Prime Minister wanted to make a connect with the
Yes,
people
it
of
was
Jammu and
it, it,
Kashmir
it was very significant that he spoke on Jammu and Kashmir Bank for a
Bank.
considerable amount of
So
time. But it's also
he,
very important that Prime Minister Modi came to Kashmir first time after the abrogation of Article
that's
370.
right. That's right.
Yeah,
That's
So
right.
so so
So
so
let me
in
just
yeah
quickly this
yeah
bank thing. So, if somebody is completely disinterested in politics and understand that Prime Minister's speech is going to be standard, there is nothing new that's going to be mentioned in that. Once he mentions about the bank, so no, that attracts your attention immediately. That what is it about the bank that the Prime Minister is talking about? So the visit was significant in the sense that first visit, first public meeting ever after the abrogation of Article 370, and first important public meeting since there was that meeting together he addressed with Mufti Said when they had the alliance
yes
in, 2000, in November
yes
2015.
yes
But what I'm sure that we'll talk about that later on as well. But what lacked in Prime Minister's speech was that there is one small element, common element across Jammu and Kashmir, which everyone wants to hear from the Prime Minister. The commitment he made inside the parliament and outside the parliament a number of
right.
times about the restoration of statehood in Jammu and Kashmir.
And
So
that
development
is
is
what
great. Yeah,
that is what we may want to ask Pathania Saab. Pathania
true.
Saab, Prime Minister's focus was on development. It was on the schemes that have been introduced in J&K and how the laws that were passed for rest of the country are now implemented in Jammu and Kashmir. In fact, he said the schemes are being launched from Srinagar today for the rest of the country. But what about there was no word about statehood. The government has made a commitment for the restoration of statehood for Jammu and Kashmir. We know that elections are to be held by September, but there was no word about it. Do you think that is something that people were wanting to hear from Prime Minister, but that was not there?
Yes, Zafar Saab, first of all, a very good afternoon to all my fellow panelists and all the people who are directly viewing your show. Two things which were very, very significant, which the Pradhan Mantri ji has spoken out. He has virtually spoken out his heart out. First of all, that Jammu and Kashmir अब खुल के सांस ले रहा है. So the public welfare schemes, policies and programs which were not
Yeah.
allowed to come and creep into Jammu and Kashmir. Those schemes, those policies, those programs, those legal frameworks which virtually benefited a few dynasties in Jammu and Kashmir. They had a non-stop come and go in Jammu and Kashmir, but those which virtually benefited the public and the populace of Jammu and Kashmir. The living example is Pradhan Mantri ji has referred to that political reservation. Unlike the rest of the country, Jammu and Kashmir has nil access to political reservation for ST. He simply he another referred to that OBC reservation for OBCs in urban local bodies and panchayats also. And another part he referred to that Jammu and Kashmir देश का मस्तक है. ये एक वक्त था कि यहाँ नहीं आने दिया जाता था, अब यहाँ से पूरे देश के लिए स्कीम इम्प्लीमेंट हो रही हैं. तो इन एडिशन टू अ क्राउड at Bakshi Stadium, more than 1 lakh people connected across the 287 blocks of Jammu and Kashmir, and then almost 60 municipalities, committees, and corporations of Jammu and Kashmir. And in addition to that, 50 metro cities of India connected to Srinagar. And these projects,
Right.
which Desh Darshan, Swadesh Darshan, and Pradesh Darshan,
Right. So,
and major tourist infrastructure and agri products launched from Jammu and Kashmir. Now, coming
right.
rightly to the question which you have directly posed, sir, Jammu and Kashmir, I have been referred to it once and again and again and again that Jammu and Kashmir is a state, Jammu and Kashmir shall a state and shall remain a state. Now, this
How?
is a
It's a
brief
union
intervening.
territory right
Now,
now.
I'm coming to it. I'm coming to it. Now, this is a very, very brief intervening period, but the Sarkar has declared from the from the floor of the parliament also that statehood shall be restored soon. So far as assembly elections are concerned, now if you put me that why you have degraded it, I put the entire onus on the dynasty, the minded, the fickle-minded politicians in Jammu and Kashmir who virtually, due to the lackluster policies of who, the situation deteriorated to such level that the Bharat Sarkar needed to take a direct control. And this direct control,
Right.
first of all,
We'll
it looks
come
like a
back to that.
legal.
We'll come back to that. We'll
Please,
come
please,
back to that, Pathania sir. But I
please.
need to ask I need to go to General Satish Dua. Sir, I remember you were in command, in control when the incident of Burhan Wani happened in uh, 2016. And then there were so many series of developments that have taken place, the abrogation of Article 370. Zafar Saab pointed at a public meeting of Prime Minister Modi with Mufti Saab that was in the cricket stadium. Today it was in Bakshi Stadium, and the gathering it was a bigger gathering. And uh, there were not much restrictions that were put in place purely from the point of view of security. Do you think that security has improved manifold over all these years, and that uh, although Prime Minister did not indicate about that, but that was clearly visible from the way the things were held today?
Uh, Hello, Zafar. Thank you for having me on the show. Uh, yes, that part I can vouch for because I was the corps commander when Prime Minister Modi made that last visit in 2015. In fact, I received him as he stepped off the helicopter. And when then they went on to make that speech with late Mufti Saab. The security situation then and this security situation now, there has been a sea change. There has been a sea change for a variety of reasons, some of which you mentioned. I mean, and I think the larger point is that after abrogation of Article 370, the there has been a big change in the way of doing things as far as security of the state is concerned. And when I say security, it is not only about terrorist violence. It is also about the stone pelting. It is about violence on the streets. So today there are no incidents of street pelting. So those days we were not. We all had to be cautious as to how to route our convoys. How would the prime minister go from one place to another, and things like that, and how many restrictions had to be put in place. Today, there is anger is not spilling on the streets. as it were. I mean, that's why more tourists are coming. That's why Thane Sahib just right now said, quoted Modi Sahib to say that Kashmir azadi ki ya chain ki saans le raha hai. So that mahal is there. Uh, uh, and when you talked about Burhan Wani's incident that happened a few months after Prime Minister Modi's visit during my tenure there. Now, after elimination of Burhan Wani, the whole valley burnt for next 3 to 4 months, the summer of 2016. But today, that the same valley, after abrogation of Article 370, is on a very different path. Now, allow me to wind up this by saying something on a different plane. Those days, there was something which I would like to call as fear of uncertainty in the minds of people, whether it was the youth, whether it was the political establishment, whether it was separatist, every awam, everybody, there was fear of uncertainty in their minds. Even the youth who were pelting stones did not know what is going to happen next, what is going to happen tomorrow. Are they going to get their so-called azadi, or what is going to happen? I mean, there was fear of uncertainty at every level. What has happened after Article 370, and this is my term, I would like to call, they have, a hope has been created. There has been creation of hope. Today, uh, after with so many schemes, this, that, I will not go into detail. So much development has taken place. So many schemes have been announced. So much, the tourism is booming. Business has started. Investment is coming and all that. So there is creation of hope. I am not trying to say that all is well and everything is over and there is no alienation. That's not, it's not to say that, but there is a marked improvement, and how we are moving forwards towards that is by, and that only time will tell how the youth of Kashmir will react, because we have to focus on the mind space of the youth, because they are the leaders of tomorrow, and this is the tomorrow's generation that will, how Kashmir turns out, it will depend on them.
Right. There is hope now, and it's the youth that are in focus. And Prime Minister rather focused most of his speech towards the youth as he was addressing them. We are also joined by Ifra Jan from the National Conference. Ifra, Prime Minister spoke about many things. He talked about development, empowerment of the people of Kashmir, and also Jammu and Kashmir being rather on the same track with the rest of the country. The laws that are implemented in the rest of the country automatically apply in Jammu and Kashmir. Also now, unlike what was happening before the abrogation of Article 370, but he did not say anything about the restoration of the statehood.
Absolutely.
Though now the elections are to be held by September. Do you think that it was more focused on development and a connect with the people of Kashmir rather than specific things that the Prime Minister could have touched upon?
Number one, you're asking whether it was somehow focused on the connect with the people of Jammu and Kashmir. If there was that connect with the people of Jammu and Kashmir, then they would not have had to hurdle people in buses and ask them, and not just common, normal people, but government employees. There were proper orders that were taken out where the government employees were asked that they have to mandatorily report at um, Bakshi Stadium early in the morning, at 5 in the morning to be precise. And then, in fact, Umar Abdullah Saab shared a list of 7,000 such employees. There was a list. He actually shared one of the pages. And Zafar Saab, I would be more than happy to send that document of 7,000 people to you. All government employees who were told that if they don't come, they will lose their jobs. So let's stop talking about the connect. Even the BJP knows there is no connect. If there was a connect, the administration would not have had to somehow stage this crowd. This was anything but organic, as the evidence has already surfaced. And I said I'm ready to share that document with 7,000 government employees with you. The second thing you ask is about the promises. What happened to the promises? The irony of the situation is, far from delivering on any promise, they've stopped making the promises that they used to make until last year. They at least used to say they will restore statehood. They never did anything, but कम से कम बोलते थे कि we will restore statehood. कम से कम बोलते थे कि we will conduct elections. They've now even stopped making basic promises. अब तो promise भी नहीं करते. 5 साल तक promise ही किया, अब तो वो भी छोड़ दिया. So this rally had anything to do with the people of Jammu and Kashmir. You talk about youth and you say that Prime Minister wanted to connect with the youth. Excellent. So the question that I would want to ask is, why is it that the youth of Jammu and Kashmir is not being allowed to cast their vote? Why is it that the youth of Jammu and Kashmir was not promised and said, listen, we look at you with hope and we know you look at us with hope and therefore you will cast your vote and choose your government? I mean, you can't be talking about youth without letting the youth have a voice, have an electoral voice. I mean,
Right.
this is bizarre. You know, you refuse to give youth their electoral democratic voice,
Right.
but you say
You
we
you
are
you,
for
you
them.
made
No,
a
you're not
point.
for them.
You made a point, Ifrajan, that the youth and the people of Jammu and Kashmir deserve a government that is elected by them. I want Pathania Sahab to respond, but before that, let's play a sound bite of Jairam Ramesh of the Congress Party, some direct questions to Prime Minister Modi.
इसको पूरा राज्य का दर्जा कब वापस लौटाया जाएगा, पहला सवाल. दूसरा सवाल, जम्मू और कश्मीर विधानसभा में चुनाव कब किए जाएंगे? आप कह रहे हैं सब सिचुएशंस नॉर्मल है, सब अभी शांति और अमन वापस आ गई है, तो चुनाव क्यों नहीं कराते विधानसभा के लिए? पंचायत के चुनाव कब कराएंगे? और पिछले आपने 2019 से बड़े धूम धमाके से आपने घोषणा की है, करोड़ों इन्वेस्टमेंट आया है, करोड़ों एमओयू साइन हुआ है. एक इन्वेस्टमेंट, एक मिसाल दीजिए जो पिछले 5 साल में वहां प्रोजेक्ट लगा है और वहां के युवाओं को रोजगार मिला है.
Please respond, Pathania Sahab.
I was hearing patiently what my other friend from Nation Conference was trying to make it out. But it appeals to me, and not to me, to every right-thinking, rational man, that it looks as if Dr. Farooq Abdullah and National Conference and Omar Abdullah, they are on separate pages. The country's premier head, the head of the country, not the nominal figurehead, but the head of the country has visited Kashmir. First of all, you should have welcomed. Farooq Abdullah also welcomed his visit in Jammu, and I'm sure, dead sure, that by today evening, he will again welcome his visit in Kashmir. First of all, you should welcome. And so far as regarding your 2 pointers are concerned, madam, I was referring to Mr. Zafar Sahab interrupted me midway. So far as statehood is concerned, none more than myself am pained as to why Jammu and Kashmir was downgraded into a union territory, but due to regressive, due to lackluster, due to certain policies which were inimical to the interests, to the security, to the well-being of the people of Jammu and Kashmir, Bharat Sarkar had to take a direct control of the thing. So once it was done, it looked that it will deliver, will not deliver, but no time has proved that this decision has delivered. The security situation, no disputes, no doubts about it. It has improved considerably.
Pathania
Please.
Sahab, does that mean that people do not have a right to elect their own government? If
I'm
this
coming
is
to it.
worked on the ground-
I'm coming to it, sir. So first of all, I was making out a point that this decision to take direct control of the state of the affairs in Jammu and Kashmir delivered wonderfully. So security scenario improved, tourism, employment, investment, everything yielded. Now coming to right to another part, the saga of elections. After 2019, there was a comprehensive delimitation ordered. This delimitation, despite COVID-1, COVID-2, and COVID-3 waves, it did its tremendous and a stupendous job. A very, very scientific survey, and ultimately delimitation report came out and ultimately accepted by Sarkar too in the year 2023. So after 2023, there was a comprehensive voter revision exercise also. I think that's also over now. Now the Honorable Supreme Court has said that before September 2024 and on 12th of March, the Election Commission is also visiting Jammu and Kashmir. But please, National Conference and all other political parties should not become that much jittery and like a fish without a water and just making a parrot ka elections. You don't worry, Lok Sabha elections are there and assembly elections would also be there. Your metal, your public standing, your public support will be given a fair test there. You keep assured. You will be able
Right.
to put in your best over there.
Right.
So, so far as Bharatiya Janata Party is concerned, we are ready for elections to be declared tomorrow also.
Right.
Let me make it one thing very categorical.
Let me go
We are
across
ready
to
for
Zafar
elections,
Sahab. Zafar Sahab,
please.
it is about election, but also about statehood. You know, we are
Yeah.
asking about statehood, the restoration of statehood, because that was also a commitment that was made. Parties like the National Conference and the PDP are saying that BJP doesn't have any stronghold in Jammu and Kashmir. That is why there is a delay in election. Do you think today's rally is a show of strength by the BJP, Prime Minister coming to Srinagar and attracting a big crowd there and making a address right in the heart of Srinagar? Do you think it's a build up to those elections and which can eventually pave way for the restoration of statehood in J&K?
I think that appears a lot doubtful because there are two things. One is about the conduct of elections to the Legislative Assembly, and second is the statehood. So, what Mr. Pathania said earlier, one can understand that, these peculiar circumstances in which the Article 370 was abrogated, you couldn't have had a state government at that moment. You needed to have a central control so that, you could accomplish that transition, a number of laws, a number of things, the control over the security scenario, etc. So, there was that window of time that was required. But beyond that, when Prime Minister himself has been making statements, look at the speech that Prime Minister made in Srinagar today, that people of Kashmir have embraced Prime Minister wholeheartedly, and he has won their confidence. He said that he has been making efforts to win their confidence since 2014, and he has already won, and he will keep on winning that confidence. The Lieutenant Governor made a mention of the number of people who attended the Prime Minister's Jalsa at Bakshi Stadium and other people. He said that the capacity was limited to 35,000. But if they had there been capacity of 2 lakh people in a particular stadium, the people would still be overflowing. Then he mentioned about the number of people who were sitting at different places across the state listening to the Prime Minister. If that's the kind of overwhelming support to BJP, to the Prime Minister, that's the kind of popularity, I think the electoral test should be ordered. But what we see is that these two things, that commitment has been made in the Prime Minister by Prime Minister in Parliament, commitment has been made outside the Parliament. It's not National Conference's demand, it's not PDP's demand, it's a common sentiment of every single person across Jammu and Kashmir. People want the statehood restored, people want the election to be held. Now you look at the situation. So how do elections take place in India? Election Commission decides, but then Election Commission says that we factor in the security situation and other preparedness. Who supplies those details of the security preparedness and other preparedness?
Of course, it is the government that supplies that. Yes. Okay, you are on mute. Zafar Saab, please do unmute. Please do unmute. I'll go across to Ifra Jan. Ifra Jan, coming to you, the Prime Minister gave certain facts and figures. He said that tourism has, there is a number of tourists that are coming to J&K has gone up exponentially. He gave those figures. And also, the security situation has improved, though there seemed to be an inherent contradiction. And Zafar Saab was saying that if the security situation has improved, then election should be held. But the security situation has improved. We can say that by being on the ground, that there's no stone pelting. The levels of violence have come down. There are no hartal calendars anymore. You have to give credit to the government. When the government is making those claims, those are happening on the ground. Situation has improved on many counts.
Which is exactly what we are asking Zafar Sahab, that if the situation has improved on many counts, why is the statehood not being restored? So far, I've not heard any credible answer to that question. If the problem with BJP is that there is a Schrodinger normalcy. The normalcy exists when the tourism, they quote the tourism numbers, fudged tourism numbers for that matter, when they say no stone pelting is happening, when they say terrorism isn't there, very clearly discounting the fact that the terrorism has now moved into Pir Panjal area and areas such as Jammu areas, which until the abrogation of 370 had seen hardly any terror activities, are now hubs of terrorism. They ignore all of that and say, whenever they want to give credit to themselves, they say, oh, look at it, everything is normal. But when we go and say, okay, if everything is normal, why aren't elections being held? Why isn't statehood being restored? Why aren't people being allowed to speak? Why aren't you treating the state, a UT for that matter, as a normal UT? They say, oh, sorry, the security situation is still not improved. So I refuse to take this as long as the BJP acts on it. If you act on it, we will believe you. But if you yourself don't believe yourselves, we are not going to believe what you're going to say on TV and what your propaganda machinery is going to run. Coming to tourism numbers, they're quoting 1 crore as tourism numbers. How are they doing that? In national conference government, we used to get 20 to 25 lakh tourists, which is exactly what they are getting. What the BJP government has now done is that it is now counting the Amarnath yatris and Katra yatris as tourists. So it's now clubbing the yatris and the tourists together and saying ye tourist hai. Itna number to, if we would have counted them together, utna tourist to even then we used to get. So let's stop fudging the numbers. Coming to the fact that somebody said, if this is the kind of support that, because the lieutenant governor said, even if we had capacity for 2 lakh, it would have still been overwhelming, we would have still not had chairs. Let's stop saying people were there in the rally. It was government employees who were there in the rally, who had been compelled to attend. There are hundreds of videos that have surfaced of Anganwadi workers who are saying we were not fed, of people coming out of the rally when the journalist questioned them and said, how was the rally? And they said, hum mulazim hai, which basically translates as we are employees. So let's stop saying
Oh,
that this is the kind of response. And one last point, a consistent point that being made here by Zafar Saab and Ajay Saab is that it was because of the circumstances, because the center needed complete control in the state, that the state had to be degraded to a UT. Absolutely wrong. There, you could have put the state under presidential rule, which is, of course, there for a certain limited period of time. And after the presidential, in the presidential rule, you have complete control over the state anyway. There was no need to degrade
right.
Jammu and Kashmir into a UT, and there is no need for this humiliating status to continue.
Right. We lost Zafar Saab briefly, but the point that he was making was that, uh, election commission will have to give the dates for the election. But election commission goes as per the recommendations of the government, because it
Jammu and
has
Kashmir
to,
have a date.
it, yeah, it has to have the security report card will come from the government. So that is the point that Zafar Saab was making. But lastly, coming to you, General Dua, the point is that what Zafar Saab is also making, that elections are to be announced by the Election Commission of India, but the security report card has to come from the government. If the security situation has improved, then why is there delay? We got that timeline in the beginning that there will be delimitation, there will be election, and then there will be restoration of statehood. The delimitation process has happened, and apparently the security situation has also improved. So why is there sort of a delay in the other steps to take it to the logical conclusion as far as the restoration of statehood is concerned?
Zafar, that is a political issue, and I can't really comment on that. All I can say that for elections to be held, given the state that the Union Territory of J&K was in or is in, for the elections to be held, you have to have couple of prerequisites. One is the security situation. The security situation is certainly much better and is conducive for elections as of now. Second is the issue of delimitation. The process of delimitation is over, and as far as I know, even the voter list review, etc., has been carried out. So the stage, to my mind, is set, and now we already have a date which is given by Supreme Court. Now, between that date and now, anytime the election commission would announce, and that process should be on, to my mind, uh, for the election date to be announced by the election commission. Uh, as far as statehood is concerned, I heard my esteemed co-panelists say that there was no need to degrade the state into a UT. It could have been by president's rule. I will not comment on that. While that is absolutely true, the fact is now that it is a union territory, and the elections are around the corner. We know it is between now and September anyway. So therefore, the statehood, is, to my mind, is bound to come around that time. Whether it is before or after is a moot point.
Right. That's all the time we have on the show. We'll have to wrap it up here. But clearly, it was a very important, significant, and historic visit of Prime Minister, in the sense that he came to Kashmir first time after the abrogation of Article 370 that happened on August 5, 2019. A lot of changes have happened in Jammu and Kashmir ever since, and a lot of change will happen in the future. There is an election and the restoration of statehood, the promises that have been made on the floor of the House. People are still awaiting those. Thanks to all our panelists for joining us today, and thanks to our audiences for watching the Mojo Story.
Mojo Story has always made a commitment to its viewers to go to where the story is. And as you can see here, we are at the epicenter of the Israel war on Gaza. We are right at the front line, about 1 mile from the Gaza Strip, as the Israeli military gets ready with its tanks and its gunners to begin its final frontal assault that will take troops into Gaza. As we said, we are not like other organizations. We believe in giving you all sides of the story objectively and as much as possible from the ground. And that's exactly what we're doing here, covering the biggest global story today from the epicenter of the war zone. So please, we need your support. Support us, become a Mojo member, subscribe to us, spread the word, and thank you for your support.